Hi, welcome to the Gun Room. Jay's with me as always, and we're going to have this post-mortem on this ridiculous score. But we're going to keep it upbeat. We're going to keep it light. We're going to talk about various things. How are you, Jay? You all right?
Yeah, good, mate. Thank you. How are you? You had a good week?
Well, no. I think many an Arsenal fan will say, that's been a terrible week. Or worse to that effect. Might have S in it and T at the end, but, you know. Let's have a talk about that game then. Let's get our teeth into it. Not great. Isaiah said we had a good 20 minutes out of 90. But there were some clear and obvious issues with the team that unfolded as we were going along. Give us your view of the game overall. Where did it all go, Pete Tong?
I think Isaiah's probably spot on, really. We started okay. Looked quite lively. But I mean, Liverpool, they were sharper, weren't they? It was very apparent that we had too many players that were either suffering sort of a hangover from COVID or an injury sort of hangover, because we didn't look sharp. And against Liverpool, you know, alongside City, they're the worst team, aren't they, to play against if you're not at sort of peak level. And it was very apparent that Liverpool's spine just, you know, as the game went on, they just overpowered us, didn't they? We looked a bit weak, I thought. Overall, if I was going to describe the game from an Arsenal point of view with just the one word, it would be weak. Liverpool, although they were missing Salah and Mane, as everybody's said, they're still they're a world-class football team. And like I said, in the centre of the sort of, you know, central midfield, Fabinho and Henderson, you know, they dominated Lokonga and Odegaard, and I thought that's where we lost the game, in the middle. Lacazette, obviously, he does his best, but he's going to get swallowed up by somebody like Van Dijk and Matip, and even I think Kanate came on at halftime, didn't they? They're gonna swallow him up. So,
do you think the introduction of ESR into this format kind of caused a problem with the balance of because you had Martinelli, didn't you, and Saka, and then Lacazette kind of holding that sort of middle ground, shielding in the box and all that sort of thing, and then you had ESR. And him and Odegaard are kind of, you know, our attacking and creative and surging players, aren't they? And they didn't quite get the ebb and the flow going, did they?
Yeah, I think Odegaard, I thought was impressive on the night. You know, he was trying to get the passing going. I think out of the, you know, the starting 11 alongside Martinelli, I think those two were the closest to being match fit, as you know. Well, yeah, you know, they were ahead of the others. But I think, you know, Odegaard is more effective playing in that 10 role where Smith Rowe was. But ultimately, Arteta didn't have too many options, did he? I think he had to go with Smith Rowe there. And Smith Rowe, again, he didn't look himself, did he? He looked like he was struggling. He didn't look like he was match fit. And he wasn't the only one. You know, Tomiyasu didn't look great, did he? He looked, you know, shadow of how he's been this season.
Yeah, I've got in my notes here, Tomiyasu, Lacazette sort of burnt himself out chasing smoke, didn't he? And ESR looked particularly kind of off the groove. Lokonga looked, that was one of his better performances, I thought.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with you, I'm afraid. I didn't think he had a good game. Yeah, I still, and obviously, look, that's what it's all about. This is what the conversation's all about. You know, when you have the way that it's always interesting to see how.
Jay, nearly a year, and we're going to have a tiff.
I just with Lokonga, he supplied a lovely through ball to Lacazette in the second half, early in the second half, for that chance that Lacazette blasted over. I'm just a bit worried. Not worried, concerned, I suppose, about Lokonga, because he was up against Fabinho last night, who is probably like the most, I'd say he's one of the stronger centre midfielders, defensive midfielders in the league. You know, there's not too many players like him anymore. He's more, you know, in the Vieira mold, where he's very much a stopper, good on the ball, don't get me wrong, but very powerful, and he sort of dominates that center of the park. And I think Lokonga, is he that kind of player, or is he more of a box to box, or is he a deep line playmaker? Or I'm not really sure about what he is yet, and I'm not entirely sure he knows what he is yet. He had a few, you know, he's good on the ball, but he just looks a bit weak, and I don't know.
There's no doubt that the middle was it was floppy, wasn't it? I mean,
yeah.
I think what I'm trying to get at, I suppose, is Lokonga, for the game time that he's had, that was one of his better performances. But he does need a party or a Xhaka, someone who can kind of guide him and mould him. And he's was he in just early 20s, isn't he?
Yeah.
He was touted by Thierry Henry, wasn't he? Who else was it that came through and said Vincent Kompany? Yeah. So they obviously see something that is worth persevering with, and I think in a couple of years' time he'll be epic. But as you say, that Liverpool midfield, I think even if we'd had a Party in there alongside him, we'd still get overrun. We'll get round to the Party, lack of Party, wasn't it? Party balloons were burst. Yeah, it was a hard performance to swallow after going to Anfield, and then you see how good we were. We were really sharp. And then there's been a lot of stuff on social media about how poor we were. But I think, you know, objectively, as you said, COVID, not training. Arteta said some of them didn't get to train, and that was clear as well, wasn't it? And it seemed to me, I don't know about you, but after that goal went in, which we'll talk about in a little while, after that goal went in, we just went plummeting down. Really took the edge off it, and it went as flat as a pancake. You could hear a pin drop at the Emirates.
Yeah, it was deflating, wasn't it? I think it was a soft goal, wasn't it? You know, like Jota picked up the ball and he had a great game. He's a top player, Jota, absolutely no doubt about that. And I think he was fortunate on the night that he came up against a sort of a half-fit Tomiyasu who did struggle, and he nutmegged Tomiyasu, didn't he? And then sort of scuffed his shot. And I think Ramsdale will be a little bit disappointed, because you very rarely see the ball go in, and go into the goal and literally in the centre. You know, it rolled into the middle of the goal, didn't it? Very rarely see that in a Premier League game.
It was kind of strange because the defence kind of imploded. They all came in at the same point, and I think there was three kind of shielding the ball. That's why Ramsdale couldn't see what he was doing until the last minute. He was too late. Yeah, and I think there was one behind. So in total, there were 5 Arsenal shirts, including the goalkeeper. Couldn't get anywhere near it.
No, and I think if he'd have got a clear strike on the ball, it probably would have cannoned off one of those defenders, but he's kind of scuffed it and put it back across. It was a good goal from Liverpool. They're a good side. I suppose overall the performance, it does highlight even more so where we are. It's easy to get carried away when we have positive performances against City at home a couple of weeks ago, against Liverpool last week. And we've said many times, haven't we, not to get carried away after those performances. And I think it's important not to get carried away after last night. Everybody's disappointed. It's a semi-final, but we're playing against a team that you'll struggle to find many better in the world, not just Europe, and they're the finished article. And that's where we need to be working towards. And I mean, we were all disappointed last night, still disappointed now, but if you look at where we are in the league, we're on course to finish in Europe, and that is the minimum for Arteta after what he spent in the summer. The absolute minimum is to get European football in of any form. Nobody wants the Europa Conference. However, that would still be improvement. And if we don't achieve it, then Mikel has failed. But all of the overreaction it has been crazy after last night on social media, the overreaction, and it's impossible to not not pick up on it, and it's difficult to not fire back. But like we've said many times, you pass your judgment at the end of the season when it's all said and done. And we're in a great position still, and we've got a lot to play for, even though we are out of both cup competitions. We've still got about a week or so left of the transfer window. So I think we just need to remain positive, because we are right still in the mix for top four. But if we don't get top four, top six is still an achievement. So it's not all doom and gloom.
It was interesting. We were talking, we seem to talk about it a lot, how thin the squad is. And you looked at that bench last night and you just thought, ow, there's no there's no player really there apart from Partey that can really get involved and change the whole dynamic. In fact, I was talking to Isaiah, I was talking to you as well last night. And I just thought, once Partey gets on, he'll be able to maybe shore up that middle. But he was the only option. They were all kids.
Yeah, I mean, I would have, in hindsight, obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing. I'd have been tempted to just play Partey from the start. I know he only flew in earlier in the day, but if he's fit enough for the bench, he's fit enough to play. Bringing him on, what was it, the 75th minute, something like that, I thought was a bit strange. The game was done. We weren't gonna get anything out of it. It was a strange one. The bench, Arteta, he tends to put quite a few of the kids on the bench, and he never really brings them on. And I kind of thought, I know it's not ideal. We're losing to Liverpool, but I kind of thought when I was watching it, why not just put a couple of those youngsters on, see what they can do? And the game's finished. Nobody's expecting them to drag us through to the final, but it is painfully thin, the squad, and I just hope in the next week that we are able to get. You look at that. You look at the team last night. We don't need one striker. We need two, don't we? We need two very, very good strikers, because we're relying on Lacazette, who is running on empty, and he's coming towards the end, and you got Nketiah, who doesn't want to play for the club. So I know we've gone over this a million times, but we need more than one striker. We need a midfielder. We need, the squad still needs massive surgery. So
on that performance, Jay, Lacazette, it was quite painful to watch after about sort of 30 minutes, half an hour. Would you offer him an extension to his contract? I'd be quite tempted on the evidence of that at that level with Liverpool, bearing in mind you've got Man City, Chelsea and all that, to maybe let him go.
It's such a tough one, because he's done well this season. Like the team has. The team have done well against sides outside the sort of the top six, haven't they, really? And he's done well without actually scoring. I suppose it all depends on who we're able to bring in. If we can sign two strikers, I'd be tempted to sort of let him go. But if we only manage to get one through the door, a 1-year extension maybe. He just doesn't score. And that chance last night, when he received the ball, lovely through ball from Lokonga, and he took a touch and he just like swiped it, didn't he? Just like a young, like a nervous sort of anxious youngster who's making his debut. You've got to hit the target. This isn't, Alisson wasn't in goal. That Kelleher's not Alisson. Make him work, test the keeper, get it on target. And if that goes in, you were talking about how deflated the stadium felt, and you could see the players were the same. There was a certain amount of energy that I think that was taken out of the team. If that goes in, if Lacazette rattles that in, Aubameyang a couple of years ago against Valencia in the semi-final of the Europa League, he had a very similar chance where I think we were 1-0 down, or it was 1-1 away at Valencia, and he received the ball, very similar position, and he absolutely rattled it into the top corner, and that's what you want from your striker. You get these against Liverpool, who are so good defensively. They were pressing so well. Liverpool, I don't know if you picked up on it, but they were doubling up on Martinelli. They were doubling up on Saka. Every time the ball got out to Saka, or we tried to get the ball out wide to hurt Liverpool, their fullbacks, their wide midfielders, and on some occasions, the central midfielder, they were tripling up on those two players. Liverpool are so well drilled defensively that when you get these chances, you just got to take them. And that's the difference between winning things and making finals, than being also rans, we had it with Henry. We've said it many times. Ian Wright, going back a little bit further, these guys would win you games in those tight situations. And we just haven't got that decisiveness up front,
It's funny you say about Martinelli. At one stage, I was looking, and the back line and the midfield was so tight you couldn't get a tangerine between them.
Yeah.
And then Martinelli on the left-hand side, he had 4 yellow shirts around him.
Yeah.
I said it was like him sitting in a bowl of custard. He was just hammered, and he couldn't get free.
No, and it was from the first whistle, and they tactically Liverpool got it spot on. And I mean, ultimately, because we've got so few options, I suppose when it does come down to, from an opposition point of view, so for last night, Klopp, when he was looking at us, it's quite easy to plan against because we don't have too many options from the bench, and the way that they defended, they were very good. But again, when every time I see that Lacazette chance, top striker finishes that, they do. They one chance, one shot, one goal, and that's what we are missing, very much so. As
much as I like all the physicality and all the work that he does, and he's very courageous and he's a real workhorse. I mean, goals are his trade.
Yeah, exactly.
And if they're not there, then we've got to look elsewhere. I mean, it's bottom line, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
Let's have a think about AFCON. Did Edu and Arteta kind of miss a trick with AFCON coming up, or did they sort of think short term, not realise that they were going to be top 5, and just let it slide? Think, oh, we're going to be good enough to just plod along. It seems to me that we didn't really cover the AFCON situation very well.
So, do you mean because we're so light?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can't plan for red cards, right? You can't. I mean, Xhaka, I suppose you can plan for Granit Xhaka getting a red card, but in reality, nobody could predict that we'd be missing him due to suspension. I suppose there's the argument: do you let Maitland-Niles go, or do you wait until the last minute of the January window to let him go? To just so we've got cover in there. But then again, I think the story is that there was an agreement in place months ago, wasn't there? So I think it's a tough one. I think maybe they considered that we would have enough to get through against someone like Forest, for example. They expected us, and I think most did, even with a backup side or players, who need minutes. You'd still consider us to have, or most considered us to have enough to beat Forest. So it just hasn't gone that way, has it?
I'm just thinking, if they knew, we all knew that AFCON was coming up, why didn't they get a couple of loaners in? Because they knew that what they were doing with Maitland-Niles, that he didn't really want to stay and stick around because he wasn't getting the game time, was he? And they let these other players go. That's another criticism that's been added. We couldn't play matches, or a match, but we let people go out on loan, and we've sold players as well. But they weren't in Arteta's plans, were they?
No. I mean, you Pablo Mari and you Kolasinac, these guys, they haven't figured at all, have they? They haven't played for the team at all. It's only Maitland-Niles is the slight head scratcher that you can understand. Maybe a slight bit of a head scratcher because he would have. I mean, ultimately, if he'd have another manager potentially would have played Maitland-Niles for the last 4 or 5 games for 90 minutes, right? He would have got another manager, but obviously Arteta just doesn't fancy him. So, no, I think you've got to I suppose you can't criticise Edu too much for that. I don't anyway. Ultimately, if Xhaka doesn't get a red card, he plays last night. And I mean, it's just, how many times have we said on here that, you're having to rely on Granit Xhaka, and we should be better than that. We need more than that.
I tell you what, the Thomas Partey sending off reminded me of the Gabriel incident. It was like 2 quick, kind of clumsy tackles, and in quick succession. and then the red card was out. Now, surely everyone in this universe knows that Thomas Partey was at AFCON. He was on a 12-hour flight. Surely that first one wasn't really a yellow. It could have been a word in the ear, couldn't it? It could have been, slow down, son. I know you're a bit ring rusty and I know you're a bit jet lagged, but, you know, watch where you're going. That second one, I've got no complaints with. Studs up, wasn't it?
Could have been a red card, straight red, that second one. First one, you're dead right. But again, it was a bit of a strange substitution. It was too late, you know. We just, I don't know, so weak in the middle. We just got overrun. The damage was already done by the time he came on. You know, if you're going to bring him on at half time, because by then, I don't know. I mean, I think we were saying it, weren't we? Something needs to change. You know, we need to change something, because you could see the game slipping away, and neither of us, I know we said it at half time, didn't we? We couldn't see a goal. We couldn't see, with the way things were going in the first half, we couldn't see how we were going to get back into the tie. So
free kick or a corner, wasn't it? Really, it was going to be something like that. But even
it goes in off Lacazette's arse or something, you know.
Obviously, the Arteta out brigade have surfaced from the wet groin of a radioactive frog.
Yeah.
You know, they're all busy on there. Here's an interesting one for you. Gooner Nation. Weird it didn't take Conte 5 transfer windows and 250 million to see an improvement. World-class manager, not making excuses, just does his talking on the pitch. We laughed at Spurs and now they're above us in the table. All I'm hearing is excuses. Excuses FC. I don't think much of that.
I mean, he is a world-class manager. I'm not disagreeing with that part. He's a top manager, and Spurs aren't a top club, but you know, I'm not debating. He is a top manager, and he's going to get them playing better. Yeah. However, let's just wait till the end of the season. If we win on, you know, we play a couple of hours before Spurs on Sunday. So if we beat Burnley, we go back above them, you know, and then they've got to get a result at Stamford Bridge, which they very rarely do. So, I mean, the Spurs are also in a new manager bounce, aren't they? You know, they're in that period, and that's going to come to an end soon, which I think it will be Sunday. And then,
but let's put some perspective. I couldn't even say it then. Let's put some perspective on it. They got out of jail, didn't they, with that Leicester win? Massively. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing we're looking at. People are getting a little bit carried away with what's going on elsewhere. Concentrate on your own bloody team. Get your eyes on your team. Get your head straight.
I mean, Chelsea destroyed them in both halves, both legs of the Carabao Cup. And then, I mean, I suppose against Leicester, they were lucky at the end. I thought they I mean, I hate to say it, but probably deserved a draw. But they just got that win, and they're just in that new manager bounce, you know, and it's going to come to an end on Sunday. Please, and I know I'm not, you know, none of us are Chelsea supporters, but you'd like Chelsea to put 2 or 3 past them and just shut them up, right?
Got a few quickies for you. What we're going to do is we're going to discuss that Xhaka yellow card game rigging thing that's going on. Apparently, there's some sort of big betting investigation going on. I can't see it. Can you? I mean, if it's anything, he normally gets a red. So he's not involved. I would have said it was the ref.
Yeah. It's funny because I had that in my accumulator, that Xhaka would get a yellow card in that Leeds game.
Shoot.
But unfortunately, it didn't return 65 grand. It was probably more like a tenner or something. I can't remember exactly how much it was.
Now, this thing behind you is just the backdrop, isn't it? And when it rolls up, you're going to be on a beach somewhere with palm trees and all that sort of thing. I know your song. Right. What about Isaiah was leaning heavily towards Odegaard as being a potential captain in the future. And I think you can see signs of that, or Ben White, can't you?
Definitely Odegaard. Definitely. He was taking quite a few instructions, wasn't he, through the game, and his influence is growing. He would be either him or, I've always said Gabriel. You know, he seems to either. I mean, you want a central defender or a centre midfielder, don't you, as a captain? So yeah, I'll be happy with any of those.
Right, a couple more quickies for you. I got my regular sparring partner took offence at one of my posts about DT's incarceration.
Oh, yeah.
So we just give DT a quick mention. Hope you're doing all right there. Probably got a big butch guy behind you. Yeah, we won't go any further with that.
Yeah.
But it's a bit shocking, isn't it? I mean, older AFTV, they're really getting the rub at the moment. They had some sort of racist allegation, sadly, against Claude, wasn't it? And now they've got this going on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I think it's important, isn't it? Just to.
It's a shame you mentioned the ins and outs when DT's got a big strapping fella behind him.
Like I've never been keen on DT. I think he's an idiot, and he's confessed to this crime, and he deserves to spend time in prison for it. And the only thing I will say is that the whole excuse of he's hid behind the mental health banner and played that card, and with so many people at the minute struggling with mental health or to different levels, and some people end up hurting themselves or worse. That it's a serious subject, and idiots like him using it as a way to hide behind or to hide his disgusting behavior. I just think it's wrong, and I hope DT just he's a thing of the past. He doesn't represent the club. I'm not particularly keen on Arsenal Fan TV, but let them do whatever they want. If people like it, fine. Watch the videos. Robbie, he's created a phenomenon, hasn't he? AFTV, whether you like it or not, is huge. And if everybody's entitled to like whatever they like, but it was a murky, nasty little story, wasn't it? Like when it came out about DT, it was not the best. But
I got contacted on Facebook by two people, one that's met him and one that knows him through someone else, and they said he's like that generally. So this is not a one-off. It's not mental health. He's quite an abusive chap, and he abused a woman down at a tube station. So we're not going to go too far into it because I don't really care. He's gone. Good luck, and enjoy your porridge. Well, let's get on to the next chewy one. Squawk Sport, and some fella called Ian phoned in. Sounds a bit like Ken, bit sort of not really there. And he phoned in to say that Bergkamp was overrated.
Oh yeah, I heard this. Yeah.
After the injury, he just wasn't that same player. I don't know who he was watching. Ray Parlour, I think.
It was. I think it was Andy Goldstein, wasn't it? They were gobsmacked, weren't they? And it was quite a funny clip, actually. I mean, the kid, he tried to make some points, didn't he? But I mean, come on.
Shameful. Absolutely shameful.
And again, I tell you what, it does, and I've said this to you before, TalkSport, with calls like that, it kind of makes you think that they've got somebody in the next room with a script, ring this number, and just to create this, just to create people like us talk about and mention the bloody radio station.
What do you make of all this postponement nonsense? I mean, we really did get it, didn't we? In social media, and the press didn't like it, and Gary, the Northern Gargoyle, came out, and Jamie Carragher, the flute, he came out. He didn't like it, but it was all right when Manchester United got a couple postponed. Got a couple of facts here. 20 games were called off at the point I was researching this. Manchester United's trip to Brentford, the home match against Brighton, there were casualties. No Neville, no Carragher. Liverpool's first leg in the cup, that was postponed, not a peep. Everton, Watford, Aston Villa, they've had requests, nothing said. And Arsenal were only one of two clubs not to have a game postponed. Why is there this seemingly toxic bias where it comes to our club? What's going on?
I think it's just always been there, hasn't it? I think Mika Richards made a great. He came out on Sky, didn't he? And said,
"Love that boy.
Why is it when Arsenal do these things, there's like a massive outcry? I don't know. They're just media bias. We just, again, I don't know. I think it's always been like that.
George Graham said they hate us. We're used to it.
Yeah.
Like, let's just roll with it. And he used to use it to his advantage, didn't he? Mika Richards, funny you should mention him. He says, I just feel like when it's Arsenal, everyone wants to lump in for some reason. By the rules, they've done nothing wrong. Alan Smith said, people have spoken about a loophole in the rules. It's just the rules. Arsenal have followed the rules. Why wouldn't Arsenal ask the question? If people want to have the hump about something, then it should be with the Premier League. Now, these rules for COVID were all agreed by the Premier League clubs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think they've got to,
but not Sky Sports.
No. I think they do need to probably look at the rules, and then it has to go back out to the clubs, and the clubs have to agree to it. So, again, I think we said it last week, didn't we? That part of the outcry towards Arsenal is because we're now slightly more relevant towards the higher end of the league, and people are starting to take a little bit more notice of us, and there's a lot of positivity. I still think, even though we've had a few bad results recently, we're being taken slightly more seriously at the higher end of the league. So people maybe are a little bit more concerned, I'd say, especially supporters of Manchester United and Spurs, and probably those two clubs, because it's the three of us really, and West Ham are going for those European places. So
I pulled this off social media. You can't see it, but I pulled it off social media, and it's regarding that incident where Klopp came on the pitch, put his arm around Saka, was having a little word in his ear. And it said here by Abbas, and he says, Klopp should stop holding Saka like that. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like some sort of jealous girlfriend.
Yeah, I think Klopp made a comment about Martinelli, didn't he, after last night's game? So he's a big fan, but you're going to be there. There are two of our best players, and we need to keep them at the club for as long as possible and away from Klopp and Liverpool.
Old Clippity Klopp. Right, couple of quickies again before you go. Burnley next. What's your thoughts on that? They're fighting for survival. I don't think I've seen them down the bottom that far. They're always around that area, but they're rooted to the bottom, aren't they? They're going to be absolutely blistering to come out and nick a point, if not all three.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough game. They're always, they're difficult physical. They'll be tough opponents. But I mean, they've lost Chris Wood to Newcastle, and we should be winning this. This is ultimately it's going to be tough physically, but we should have enough to beat them. And this is a good game to get the season back on track with, to use it as a way to get some confidence back in the players and maybe score a couple of goals. But we have to win. There's absolutely no doubt, because we are in a rut. We are. I know we've played in a couple of different competitions recently, but we are in a rut. What is that? 3 defeats from 4, and we haven't scored. And it doesn't look great. So we do need to get some confidence flowing, get the players back. And then I think, after Sunday, I think we've got 2 weeks off. Maybe I think that's about right. So I think there's a rumor that Arteta's going to let a few of the players have some time off. So hopefully get the win, go into that short break with confidence. And again, if results go our way, we're back into 4th, and the season's ticking along now. We're coming towards the end of January and we're in 4th. So let's just remain positive and get behind the team.
What I want to do is, in the break, when we have that break, we'll do that special, have a profile of the players, and we'll let everyone know about that. We'll probably do one in between anyway. So do you think we're capable of nabbing that top 4 with additions? But what about without? More chance with?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, if we go and sign Vlahovic, which looks unlikely, but you never know. If we go and sign him and he hits the ground running, yeah, absolutely. Without, I think if we don't sign any players, I think we're going to be desperately thin. We're going to have to be lucky. And we need to hope that ultimately others slip up because, you know, Spurs have got a couple of games in hand. I think ultimately at top 4, even with, if we do manage to sign players, is a massive bonus. That's the very top end of my expectations. And I think most others, you're right. You know, nobody expected top 4 really, truthfully. If we got top 6, perfect. And I'd be over the moon with top 6.
We said, didn't we, early on in the season, we'd take 5th. That would have done us.
It would be superb. But we need to be aiming for top 6. And we are good enough to do that. 100%.
What's your prediction for the match? I'm going to go a grubby 1-0.
Yeah. I'm going to go 2-0. 2-0 late. We'll score early and then grab. I think it'll be backs to the wall, and then we'll nick a goal in the last sort of 10 minutes or so.
Hey, that's a DT, isn't it? Back to the wall. Got that big burly bloke behind him.
Oh, it's the last time we mentioned that knobhead.
Anyway, Jane, thanks for coming into the gun room again. Been brilliant as always, and we'll see you for the next one.
You take care, mate.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.